To translate for me, let's see what's first. Oh, I get to see what's first.
Mail time.
I don't have to twirl my hand. Here we go. What was your biggest takeaway from the college football weekend?
Tone, I know there were results in terms of games I could focus on, like Texas Tech beating Texas in a competitive game. But I'm not going there.
TCU.
I'm sorry,
Texas.
TCU, not Texas Tech, TCU. I'm going to go to a young man that we know from right here in the District of Columbia, Caleb Williams, Tony. Because Saturday, he didn't have his best game, 14-26, although 3 touchdowns passing, 2 touchdowns rushing. Accounted for 5, had one of his 2 picks on the year. Yes, I said only 2 picks on the year. Tony, even in the one loss that USC has, and I got him as my favorite to win the Heisman because of these results, he had 5 passing touchdowns against Utah in a game that USC lost. They're going to play UCLA this week. I'm really looking forward to that. I got Caleb Williams ahead of the young man at Tennessee, ahead of C.J. Stroud at Ohio State, Hendon Hooker at Tennessee. As the Heisman Trophy favorite right now, in my house, his numbers are clearly better. 1 loss.
I'm going to go to teams. My first thought was that TCU validated the ranking because they went to Texas, a ranked team, and they beat Texas, and they look like a playoff team. My second thought was about the conference you just mentioned, that the Pac-10, and I'll call them the Pac-10, thank you, they imploded. UCLA lost, Oregon lost, 2 losses, they're out. I think that hurts USC because it's hard to now find a signature win that USC can get. My third takeaway was about Tennessee. Their strategy is clearly to score 60 and 70 and 80 points whenever they can to come in as a 1-loss team. But, Mike, to me, the path easier and more defined for a 2-loss team, for LSU. Because if they beat Georgia in the SEC championships, they're in, and so is Georgia.
I don't want them. I don't want any 2-loss teams in this year. Not yet.
Should we be all in on the Dolphins, or are you reserving judgment because they just beat the Lions, Bears, and now the Browns?
No, I was in on the Dolphins before that. And if Tua's out there healthy, and he has been, starting and finishing games, then, no, the Dolphins, Tone, I'm not going to call them the 72 Dolphins because they can't be that. They can't be perfect. But they look pretty damn close to perfect with him out there. And so, yes, I am all in on the Dolphins. Their defense is good enough, and particularly with Bradley Chubb out there rushing the passer after they got him in a trade. And the offense is nuclear. The offense, when he's out there, Tua can get all of this done, and he seems to keep himself out of harm's way. Yes, I'm all in on Miami, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't begrudge the teams they've beaten. You play the schedule they give you, and so I don't care about that. I'm not certain I'm all in on the Dolphins. I'm all in on Tua.
Okay.
I now understand why tanking for Tua a few years ago was pretty smart. 7-0 in games that he starts and finishes. Since he came back from the concussion, 4-0, 10 touchdown passes, no interceptions, 308 yards passing per game. And he's only been sacked twice. He's only been sacked twice.
Yeah.
So as you look around in the AFC, and as I said in our first segment, Buffalo has hurt itself. They are not necessarily the front runner. Kansas City wins games, but not by large, impressive margins. The emergent team, to me, would be Miami. And what I find most interesting, and we talk about this a lot, the 2 Alabama quarterbacks, Tua and Jalen Hurts, who were under the most glare and doubt at the beginning of the season. Their combined record in games they start and finish is 15-0.
Yeah.
It's 15-0, right? What more do you want?
It's really good, Tone. And by the way, when they put those graphics up on today's Miami team led by Tua, and they go back to first time since 1984, they're going against Dan Marino. Come on now.
Dan Marino.
All in. Enough
email. Let's take one last break. Still to come. Should Bears fans like Wilbon focus on Justin Fields? Happy time, people. Happy 24th birthday, Devontae Smith, the Heisman winner at Alabama in 2020 and a member of 2 national championships there. In his senior year, Smith had 117 catches and 23 receiving touchdowns. If Smith were still at Alabama, they might not have those 2 losses they're saddled with now. Smith was the overall number 10 pick in the NFL draft by Philadelphia, where we will see him tonight on Monday Night Football. Last year as a rookie, Smith had 64 catches and 5 touchdowns. So far this year, Smith has 40 catches and 2 touchdowns. Mike, I wonder what his comfort level is having Jalen Hurts, an Alabama teammate, throwing to him.
I'm sure it's high, Tony. How about those number of Heisman winners? What is it, 4 for Nick Saban down at Alabama? It's amazing. And Smith, some people thought he was going to just too small and might be brittle in the NFL. Hasn't turned out to be that way at all.
Not at all. Happy anniversary, Don Shula. On this day 29 years ago, the late legendary Miami Dolphins coach passed Papa Bear George Halas for most wins ever in the NFL by a head coach. Shula, who coached the Baltimore Colts before coaching the Dolphins, finished with 328 regular season victories. And that is 33 more victories than Bill Belichick, who now sits in third place behind Shula and Halas. Shula retired at age 65. Belichick is 70 years old now. If Belichick wins 3 or 4 more games this year at New England, he might well catch Shula in 3 more full seasons. Mike, do you think he will stay and try and do that?
Tony, I don't see that. And Belichick is such a passionate student of history, all history, but of course, NFL history. You know he knows everything Shula ever did along the way. And it strikes me that given his great respect for Shula and history, that it wouldn't matter to him. If he's winning, maybe he'll stick around because he feels great, but not just to beat Shula. I don't necessarily see that.
Happy trails to a 14-point fourth quarter lead for your Chicago Bears, Wilbon. The Detroit Lions scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Bears for their second.
Absolutely, Tony. Look, Tone, already in just these few games, he has put himself up there with performances, not career achievement, performances that remind some of us old heads of Sayers, number 40, Peyton, 34. You know how difficult it is for me to say that. Justin Fields has had like 3 or 4 weeks in a row now. We can't beat anybody. We have no defense. They traded away the defense, and they finished it when they got rid of Quinn and Roquan Smith. We got to forget about that. We got to revel in the development of Justin Fields. Long way to go. But, oh, my God, he has the tools.
You know, historically, Ohio State quarterbacks aren't great in the NFL. You know that.
Yeah.
Let me go to the other side on this. Earlier in the year, there was some talk of getting rid of the coach at Detroit. That guy, his team is so spirited. You know what I mean? When you watch them play, they never think they're out of it. Now, he said crazy things about biting people's kneecaps, but that team plays for him. They play for him. He ought to get some credit.
They played too well
Let's go to the big finish.
Let's do it.
Yesterday, Joel Embiid had 59, Darius Garland had 51, Anthony Davis had 37. Which was most notable?
Oh, Embiid. I mean, Garland was great, but they didn't win. They've lost 4 straight. Now, Embiid, Tone, I know you don't like to give Embiid a kiss, but I will. Come on now. The Niners beat the Chargers. Did that impress you?
Yeah, I think the Niners are going to get better and better and better as the season goes along, but the Chargers were +7 and only lost by 6, so they covered. Top College Hoops prospect DJ Wagner chose Kentucky over Louisville today. Does that make sense?
It makes sense, but we're talking about DeJuan Wagner's son and Milt Wagner's grandson. You and I covered games that Milt Wagner played in. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
The Bruins are 14-2 and have started a team record 9-0 at home. Is that a big deal?
They're an original team. If this is a record at home, that's a big deal. Last one, number 3, Texas, and number 6, UConn. Women's college hoops tonight. Who you got?
I'm just going to say this. UConn to be number 6 without their best player, Paige Beckers, who I guess is out for the season, that is impressive all on its own.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. Elizabeth and Ron, congratulations.
Congratulations indeed. I'm Mike Wilbon. Same time tomorrow, Knuckleheads. Now to get you set for Monday Night Football, here's Susie Colbert and the Countdown crew. Some bash, Tony. L'chaim.
Hi, guys, and welcome to Monday Night Countdown.
Tell me every time we make a UB joke that he loves it. So I'm happy to do him. He's not 115.
No, he's not.
110, 115. Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, the Bucs beat the Seahawks, Packers upset the Cowboys, and Jeff Saturday wins his coaching debut over Josh McDaniels. But we begin today with Minnesota and Buffalo, who produced one of the greatest late fourth quarters and overtimes in recent memory. Justin Jefferson, looked like Jerry Rice. Kirk Cousins stopped at the goal line to keep Minnesota from winning. And then amazingly, Josh Allen fumbled in his own end zone to keep Buffalo from winning. Remarkably then, Allen went down the field to set up the tying field goal. The overtime, almost as dramatic and it ended with Allen throwing an interception in the end zone. Wilbon, I know you watched. I watched. Did this win convince you to take the Vikings seriously?
Yes, it did, Tony. I think I was taking them seriously anyway because I watch more of that division. I've watched the Vikings. I know people outside of the upper Midwest don't take the Vikings seriously. They don't take Kirk Cousins seriously, particularly after he's dancing, shirtless on a plane following a victory.
Yeah.
They just don't. So I like the way the Vikings play, and particularly, Tony, what Cousins does seem to know, with or without a shirt, is that he's got the greatest weapon at that position. I know I've said that Deebo Samuel's the best weapon in the league because he can run and catch. But, Tone, I don't put anybody in the paragraph of Jerry Rice. I just don't do it. I threatened my own son and said, you will be disinherited if you compare anyone in this household to Jerry Rice. And now I'm doing it. I texted you in live time and I told you this was the greatest ending of a regular season football game I had ever seen. Ever. And it is. Yeah. I can't come up with anything else. But the Vikings, Tone, I think the Vikings are going to get challenged late in the season by the Packers, the Bears, and the Lions. I don't think they're through this yet, but I take them seriously now.
I do as well. I take them seriously. They are 8-1. The only team they've lost to is Philadelphia, which hasn't lost at all at this point. They win close games all the time. 7 of their 8 games are one-score games. That means they're winners.
Yep.
And they know how to win games. I mean, that's an important aspect to this. I think they're a very good team at this point, and I trashed Kirk Cousins for years. I'm not trashing him today. He stood up. He played great. Even when he went down at the end zone and he didn't get in, that was the right call, and he made the right play. I have worries for Buffalo now, Mike. These are 2 very bad losses in a row. To the Jets in division and to the Vikings in a game they should have won.
Both going to the playoffs.
Now, I accept the fact that Josh Allen made up for a mistake by going down the field for the tying score. But, Mike, that fumble was atrocious.
Yeah.
It was atrocious. And his last pass getting picked off was very, very bad. There's no other words to say. This is the 4th time in the last 2 weeks this has happened to Josh Allen in or end zone. And, Mike, I said this to you yesterday in real time. Do you think that he can recover from this?
Yeah.
Or is the cumulative burden of it too great to bear?
Tony, his personality seems like if I was going to pick a guy or two to go through this, I might pick Josh Allen. And I love the way at the mic at the end of the game, he said, this is on me. I've got to be better. He didn't say we. He didn't blame the offensive coordinator. He didn't blame his head coach. He didn't talk about play calling. He said, this is on me.
That's right.
I love him. I love his demeanor during the game and after the game. Yes, those are bad turnovers. You're right. And 6 picks in 3 games. I'm with you on that. But I'm not ready to be down on Buffalo yet, but I'm ready to be up on the Vikings for now. I think the Vikings got some tough games to go.
To reemphasize what you said, as Kirk Cousins was, and give him credit, matriculating the ball down the field in the fourth quarter. He had 3rd and long. He had 4th and long. He got it up and close enough to Jefferson, who every single play he made was dramatic. And the one-handed catch is among the greatest catches I've ever seen.
It is among the greatest catches. And again, I'm putting him in a conversation with Jerry Rice. Maybe I'm insane, but,
Don't do that.
Don't do that yet.
Don't do that.
It's like putting Derrick Henry in with Jim Brown. You and Sapp say to me, shut up, don't do that. Let's move to 2 unexpected results. In the early morning, way too early morning, Kornheiser special game in Munich, Tom Brady and the Bucs beat Geno Smith and the Seahawks. And later in Lambeau, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers beat Dak Prescott and the Cowboys. Tom, which of these results was more surprising to you?
Rodgers by a factor of 10,000.
Yeah.
Tom Brady went out, and Tom Brady beat a pretty good team. Seattle's a pretty good team. And as you say, that was in Germany. Tom Brady's team led the entire way, and Tom Brady landed the plane. Aaron Rodgers was down, coming out of, I think, 5 straight losses, was down 14 points in the fourth quarter to a team we think is a very good team.
Yeah.
Dallas. Okay? And Aaron Rodgers in the first half of that game, except for 1 long touchdown pass, looked completely disinterested in the game. Maybe he threw 6 or 8 passes. He looked like he wanted to get off the field. And then late in the game, we saw Aaron Rodgers for perhaps the first time all year. And in the overtime, when Mike McCarthy went on 4th and 4 and didn't get it and took his headset off and threw it down with a ferocity, must have shattered it into 1,000 pieces. Everybody watching that game, you, me, and everyone else, knew Aaron Rodgers was going to go down the field and win again.
Yeah, Tony, the place that you and I disagreed in real time is when you called me and said he looks disinterested. What's wrong with him? I said, do you know? We've been screaming for Aaron Rodgers and the Packers to run the damn football for weeks. So they didn't. So that took to me discipline. And Aaron Rodgers, that may not be the primary way he wants to play, but it was the best way to play. And by the way, I saw this graphic yesterday. I'm going to presume is accurate. The Cowboys in franchise history are 195-0 when leading by 14 in the fourth quarter. That's a wow. I saw that graphic. Now
it's one. Now it's 195
and one. Yeah. But Tone,
Yeah.
I give Aaron Rodgers credit for doing what he needed to do in real time for his team, not for his own glory. That's a big win. They saved their season, at least temporarily. We've seen the Packers under Favre and Rodgers do this. We've seen them do it.
Maybe it's a turnaround, maybe. But let me just give you this quickly. He has, what do they have? Tennessee and Philadelphia, the next two.
Yep.
Then they have the Vikings and the Dolphins.
You got to win.
Tampa Bay's 5-5, Mike.
Yeah.
Tampa Bay's in a rancid division. They're going to make the playoffs. And his turnaround was last week against the Rams at the end of the game.
Yeah, no surprise there. No surprise.
Jeff Saturday's Colts won yesterday, beating the Raiders behind their once again starting quarterback, Matt Ryan. Saturday is now 1-0 as an NFL head coach. Across the aisle, Josh McDaniels is now 7-24 in his last 31, and he's 2-7 this season. After the game, Raiders quarterback Derek Carr said with great emotion that not everyone on his team cares as much as they should. Wilbon, would you rather start with Saturday's win or Carr's reaction to his loss?
Well, like a lot of people at this network, I was certainly rooting for Jeff Saturday, who I know. And Carr, who I don't, really struck me, however, because I watched the whole thing. You know, I watched his whole post-game. He was like he needed a sofa. He should have been laying on a sofa with a shrink in the room instead of other reporters. And I just thought, this guy feels this. There ain't nothing phony about this. Now, you may not like it. You may not like your football players to go to their knees and be almost weepy at the end of the game. I do, because it shows no matter how much money you make and no matter how much glory and fame you could be covered in, this is like a little kid's game to you and you care that much. And good for Derek Carr. I'm happy for just Saturday, but I wonder what's going to happen I almost said Oakland, in Las Vegas. Because, Tone, that coach, he ain't never got it done as a head coach. He's been terrific as a coordinator. Somebody will hire him back. And I know there are denials all the time about him getting fired, but why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you fire him?
All right, so I will start with Derek Carr. I watch him. He does this after almost every single game. And the way you give Josh Allen credit, I'll give Derek Carr credit. He puts it on himself, says it's his fault.
Yes.
But then he sits there and he wonders why his team has lost. Well, they're 2-7. That's a lot of wonder. They are to losing close games what Minnesota is to winning close games. They have lost. They're 0-6 in one-score games. They're losers. It should be obvious. They were a playoff team last year. They added Devontae Adams, if I'm not mistaken, who is a great player. And they got rid of the interim coach, Rich Bisaccia, who took them to the playoffs, who kept the team together after the John Gruden mess and won 4 in a row to get there. And they hired a guy who it's simply not working at all. I, too, like you, I'm happy for Jeff Saturday. I don't think they're any good, but they won on the road and they play the schedule they get. Here's what they got coming up. Eagles, Steelers, at Cowboys, at Vikings, Chargers, at Giants. Maybe win 2 of those.
Hard.
But at least today, Jeff Saturday can be happy, and the people that knocked that hire have to shut up for at least a week. Let's take a break. Coming up was TCU's win over Texas, the biggest result of the college football week.
Presented by Crown Royal. Part of Happy Hour.
It's time to find out what's the haps with the hoi polloi. Some